Stop this hearing. That land never belonged to the bank.
A struggling single father who had spent the last 20 years building children's wooden furniture with his own hands. 30 seconds earlier, he had already signed away everything he owned. His workshop, his home, even the small piece of land where his late wife was buried. The billionaire developer smiled. The bank manager quietly closed the foreclosure file. The judge reached for the final stamp. Then, the massive courtroom doors burst open. A young woman in a dark navy suit walked inside. She wasn't running. She wasn't afraid. She simply held up a small silver key and calmly said, "Stop this hearing. That land never belonged to the bank." The entire courtroom fell silent. The judge frowned. The billionaire laughed. The bank's lawyers smiled at each other. Until the young woman placed an old government evidence file on the judge's desk and whispered 6 words that made every face in the courtroom turn pale. "I finally found my father." Marcus slowly looked up. He had never seen the young woman before, but around her neck hung the same tiny silver key he had tied there himself 15 years ago when he adopted an 8-year-old homeless girl sleeping behind his workshop. The girl everyone believed had disappeared forever. How had she found him? Where had she been for 15 years? And what secret could destroy a billionaire empire in a single morning? To understand that, we have to go back 15 years earlier, to the coldest night Marcus Reed would ever remember. The snow had started falling before sunset. By midnight, the streets of Oak Ridge looked almost empty. Only the yellow glow of old streetlights reflected across the fresh white snow. Marcus Reed pulled down the metal shutter of his tiny woodworking shop. The sign above the entrance read, "Reed Family Woodworks." The paint had faded years ago, so had the business. Inside, only 3 unfinished rocking chairs remained. Marcus wiped the sawdust from his hands and quietly locked the front door. Another long day. Another day without enough customers. He climbed into his 20-year-old pickup truck. The heater barely worked. The dashboard lights flickered every few minutes. But Marcus never complained. There was only one thing on his mind. His 7-year-old daughter, Emma. She would be waiting at home, probably pretending to stay awake, just so she could say goodnight to her father. Marcus smiled to himself. No matter how difficult life became, Emma always made home feel warm. As he turned the key, the truck coughed twice before finally starting. He had barely driven 20 yards when something caught his eye. Behind the workshop, near the old storage shed, a small shape sat curled against the brick wall. At first, Marcus thought it was a pile of blankets. Then, the blankets moved. He stopped the truck. Snow continued falling. The wind pushed tiny flakes across the empty alley. Marcus grabbed his flashlight. "Hello?" No answer. He stepped closer. The figure didn't move. Only after he reached the wall did he realize it was a little girl. She couldn't have been older than 8. Her clothes were soaked. Her shoes didn't even match. One was too big. The other had no sole left. She hugged her knees tightly, trying to stop herself from shaking. Marcus knelt beside her. "Sweetheart, are you okay?" Slowly, she lifted her head. Her face was dirty. One cheek carried an old bruise. But her eyes weren't frightened. They were exhausted, like someone who hadn't slept safely in a very long time. Marcus removed his coat and wrapped it around her shoulders. She immediately tried giving it back. "I'll make it dirty." Marcus gently smiled. "It's just a coat." She looked down, almost embarrassed. "I don't want people getting angry because of me." Marcus felt something tighten inside his chest. No child should ever say words like that. He offered his hand. "Come inside." She didn't move. "I can't." "Why not?" "They'll find me." Marcus looked around. The alley was completely empty. "Who's looking for you?" The little girl slowly lowered her eyes. "I don't know." That answer didn't make sense. But somehow, it sounded completely honest. Marcus opened the workshop again. Warm air slowly filled the room. The smell of fresh pine wood surrounded them. The little girl stood quietly near the door. as if she was afraid to step on the clean floor. Marcus pointed toward an old chair. "You can sit." She remained standing. Only after Marcus sat first did she carefully take a seat. Marcus walked toward the small office. Inside the refrigerator, only half a carton of milk, 2 apples, and yesterday's chicken soup remained. It wasn't much, but it was enough. He heated the soup, placed it in front of her. She stared at it for several seconds, then quietly asked, "How much does it cost?" Marcus blinked. "What?" "The soup. You don't have to pay." She frowned. "Nothing is free." Marcus didn't answer immediately. Instead, he pushed the bowl a little closer. "It's free tonight." Very slowly, she picked up the spoon. Her hands trembled so badly, the soup spilled back into the bowl. Marcus pretended not to notice. She finished every drop, then carefully wiped the bowl clean with the last piece of bread, as though wasting even one bite was forbidden. Marcus quietly asked, "What's your name?" The girl froze. Several long seconds passed. Finally, she whispered, "Lily. And your last name?" Silence. "Do you know where your parents are?" She slowly shook her head. Marcus didn't ask another question. Sometimes, children answered more by what they refused to say. A loud knock suddenly echoed through the workshop. Both of them looked toward the front door. Lily instantly jumped from the chair. Her breathing became fast. She backed into the corner. Marcus noticed something strange. She wasn't scared of the knock. She was scared of being seen. Marcus opened the door. Outside stood Officer Daniel Morris, the neighborhood police officer. "Evening, Marcus." Marcus smiled. "Cold enough for you?" Daniel laughed. "I've had warmer nights." Then his eyes wandered inside. He noticed Lily. Immediately, his smile disappeared. "You know her?" Marcus slowly shook his head. "Found her outside." Daniel sighed. "Third homeless child we've picked up this month." Lily lowered her head. Daniel continued softly. "We've got one emergency shelter with space tonight." Marcus looked toward Lily. She hadn't moved. She wasn't crying. She wasn't speaking. She simply stood there, holding Marcus' old coat with both hands. Daniel crouched a little. "Hey, sweetheart. We'll take good care of you." Lily's lips finally moved, almost too quietly to hear. "I can't go there." Daniel frowned. "Why?" She whispered. "They always find me." The room became silent. Marcus and Daniel exchanged a glance. Neither of them asked the obvious question. "Who was they?" Daniel gently said, "Marcus. Protocol says I should take her." Marcus looked at Lily again. She hadn't blinked once. Instead, her fingers slowly reached beneath her sweater. She pulled out something hanging from a thin leather cord around her neck. A tiny silver key, old, worn, almost black with age. She grabbed it tightly, as if her life depended on it. Marcus noticed tiny letters engraved on one side. But before he could read them, Lily quickly hid the key back under her sweater. Then she looked directly into Marcus' eyes for the first time. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. "Please, just let me stay until tomorrow." Marcus didn't know why, but something about those words, and that old silver key, made him feel this little girl wasn't simply homeless. She was running from something far bigger than anyone realized. Outside, across the street, a black SUV sat silently beneath the falling snow. Its headlights remained off. Inside, someone was watching the workshop, and as Marcus closed the front door, a man inside the SUV quietly picked up his phone. "We found the girl." He paused, then looked toward the warm light inside Marcus' workshop. "But she's not alone anymore." Marcus didn't sleep that night, not because he was worried about the snow, or because of the stranger sitting quietly in the small office beside the wood stove. It was because of the words she had whispered. "They always find me." Those 6 words refused to leave his mind. Outside, the snow continued falling. Inside, the workshop remained warm. Marcus spread an old blanket over the couch where Lily had finally fallen asleep. She never fully relaxed. Even in her sleep, She clutched the tiny silver key tightly against her chest, as though letting go of it meant losing everything. Marcus quietly walked back toward his workbench. He picked up an unfinished wooden rocking horse. It had been Emma's birthday gift. Only 3 days remained before her 8th birthday. He smiled faintly. Emma had already asked 20 times if she could paint it herself. Marcus sanded one final corner before placing it carefully aside. Just then, Officer Daniel walked over carrying 2 cups of coffee. "I figured you weren't sleeping." Marcus accepted one. "Thanks." For a few moments, neither man spoke. The only sound came from the crackling fire. Finally, Daniel broke the silence. "I checked every missing child report within 2 counties." Marcus looked up. "Nothing?" Daniel slowly shook his head. "Not even close." Marcus frowned. "What about fingerprints?" Daniel sighed. "No record. No school registration. No hospital history. No foster file. It's like—" He stopped. Marcus finished the sentence. "She doesn't exist." Daniel nodded quietly. "I've never seen anything like it." The room became silent again. Then, Lily suddenly cried out in her sleep. "No! Please don't!" Both men rushed toward her. Her eyes remained closed. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She wasn't awake. She was reliving something. Marcus gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "Lily, it's okay." She suddenly grabbed his wrist. Her fingers trembled violently. "They took my brother." Marcus froze. Daniel's eyes widened. Brother? Neither of them had heard her mention anyone before. Before Marcus could ask another question, she suddenly opened her eyes. For several seconds, she looked completely confused. Then she realized where she was. Her breathing slowly calmed. Marcus smiled gently. "Bad dream." She quietly nodded. Marcus hesitated. "You mentioned your brother." Instantly, the warmth disappeared from her face. She looked toward the floor. "I don't remember." Marcus knew she did. She simply wasn't ready. He didn't push. Instead, he stood. "How about breakfast?" For the first time, Lily gave the smallest smile. It lasted barely a second. But Marcus noticed it. Across town, inside a luxury office overlooking downtown Oak Ridge, a tall man stood beside the window. Ethan Brooks, CEO of Brooks Urban Development, one of the wealthiest real estate developers in the state. A security photograph lay on his desk. Marcus, standing beside Lily outside the workshop. His assistant entered quietly. "We confirmed the location." Ethan never looked away from the photograph. "And the key? We believe she still has it." Silence. Then Ethan calmly spoke. "Get it back." The assistant hesitated. "What about the man?" Ethan slowly turned. "If he becomes a problem." His voice remained perfectly calm. "He disappears too." Back at the workshop, morning sunlight reflected off the fresh snow. Marcus drove Lily home. Emma ran outside before the truck even stopped. "Dad!" She hugged Marcus, then noticed Lily. Emma tilted her head. "Who's she?" Marcus smiled. "A new friend." Emma walked directly toward Lily. Without asking another question, she held out her favorite stuffed rabbit. "You can borrow Snowball." Marcus laughed softly. Emma never shared Snowball. Not with anyone. Lily stared at the rabbit, then quietly asked, "You trust me?" Emma shrugged. "Daddy does. So I do." For a long moment, Lily couldn't speak. No one had trusted her in years. Maybe ever. She slowly accepted the rabbit, holding it as carefully as if it were made of glass. Marcus watched silently. Children often healed wounds adults couldn't even see. That afternoon, Marcus received an unexpected visitor. A woman in an expensive gray business suit. She introduced herself politely. "My name is Helen Carter. I'm with Child Protective Services." Marcus invited her inside. Helen smiled warmly at Lily. "We just want to ask a few questions." Lily immediately became nervous. Helen noticed. She knelt beside her. "Sweetheart, can you tell me where you lived before this?" Lily remained silent. What about your parents? Nothing. Helen tried another question. Do you know what this key opens? The moment she mentioned the key, Lily's face turned white. No, but Marcus noticed something. She hadn't looked confused. She looked afraid, very afraid. Helen finished her paperwork. As she stood to leave, she quietly handed Marcus a business card. If she remembers anything, call me immediately. Marcus nodded. After she drove away, he looked down at the card, then noticed something strange. A black sedan had been parked across the road the entire time. The windows were too dark to see inside. The engine never turned off. Marcus frowned. When he looked again, the sedan slowly pulled away, without a sound. That evening, Emma and Lily sat on the living room floor coloring wooden animals Marcus had carved years earlier. Emma giggled constantly. Lily mostly watched, learning how to smile again. Marcus stood in the kitchen making dinner. For the first time in months, the little house felt full again. Then, someone knocked on the front door. 3 slow knocks. Marcus opened it. No one was there. Only a small brown envelope rested on the porch. No stamp, no address, just one word written across the front. Leave. Marcus slowly opened it. Inside was a single photograph. It showed Lily, sleeping behind his workshop, 2 nights earlier, taken from a distance. Someone had been watching her, long before Marcus found her. On the back of the photograph, 5 words were written in black ink. She doesn't belong to you. Marcus's heartbeat slowed. He turned toward the living room. Emma and Lily were still laughing together, completely unaware. Marcus quietly folded the photograph, without letting either girl see it. But outside, hidden behind the trees across the road, a camera lens slowly lowered. Someone whispered into a radio, Phase 2 begins tonight. Marcus didn't tell the girls about the photograph. He slipped the envelope into the bottom drawer of his old workbench, locked it, and quietly returned to the dinner table. Emma was laughing. Lily wasn't. Although she smiled whenever Emma looked at her, Marcus noticed her eyes kept drifting toward the windows, like she expected someone to be watching. That night, after both girls fell asleep, Marcus pulled the photograph back out. The timestamp printed in the corner caught his attention. 3 days earlier. His stomach tightened. He hadn't even met Lily 3 days ago. Someone had already been following her. The next morning, Marcus drove Emma to school while Lily stayed home helping him organize the workshop. She worked quietly, carefully arranging pieces of wood by size. Marcus smiled. You've done this before. Lily shook her head. I just like things neat. For the first time, the workshop felt alive again. Customers even stopped by. Mrs. Henderson ordered a rocking chair. An elderly veteran bought a handmade birdhouse. Business wasn't booming, but it was better than yesterday. Then, a black luxury SUV rolled slowly past the workshop. It didn't stop. It didn't honk. Simply drove by. Twice. Marcus watched it disappear around the corner. Lily had seen it too. The color instantly drained from her face. She accidentally dropped a wooden box. Marcus gently asked, Do you know that vehicle? She answered almost immediately, No, but her trembling hands said otherwise. Marcus didn't ask again. That afternoon, Officer Daniel arrived carrying a folder. I found something. Marcus closed the workshop door. Daniel spread several old newspaper articles across the table. 3 years ago, 4 homeless children disappeared across 3 different states. Marcus frowned. What happened? They were never found. Marcus slowly looked toward Lily, who was happily drawing with Emma outside. Daniel lowered his voice. All 4 children were around Lily's age. Marcus's expression hardened. You think someone was taking them? Daniel nodded. But here's the strange part. He pointed toward one article. Every child disappeared carrying some kind of personal object. Marcus looked closer. One carried a necklace. Another had an old pocket watch. One had a brass coin. Daniel continued. And Lily, Marcus whispered, the silver key. Neither man spoke. The room suddenly felt much colder. Later that evening, Marcus tucked Emma into bed. She hugged him tightly. "Dad." "Yes." "Can Lily stay forever?" Marcus smiled. "We'll see." Emma thought for a moment. "I think she's scared all the time." Marcus kissed her forehead. "I know. I'll protect both of you." Outside Emma's bedroom, Lily had accidentally overheard everything. She quietly wiped away a tear. No one had ever promised to protect her before. Near midnight, a loud crash shattered the silence. Marcus bolted upright, glass breaking. From the workshop, he grabbed the baseball bat beside his bed, raced outside. The front window had been smashed. Wooden furniture lay scattered across the floor. Nothing had been stolen. Only one thing was missing: the bottom drawer, the one containing the photograph. Marcus's heartbeat quickened. Whoever broke in didn't want money. They wanted evidence. Officer Daniel arrived within minutes. After checking the building, he frowned. No fingerprints. No footprints. Marcus looked around, then noticed something stuck beneath the broken window. A tiny silver button, not from ordinary clothing. Daniel examined it carefully. His face changed. "I've seen these before." Marcus looked up. "Where?" Daniel swallowed. "Federal tactical uniforms." Before Marcus could ask another question, Lily suddenly screamed from the house. Marcus sprinted inside. She stood frozen near the living room window, pointing outside. Across the snowy road, a man stood beneath a streetlight, completely still, watching the house. His face couldn't be seen, only his long black coat. The moment Marcus stepped onto the porch, the man calmly turned, walked toward the waiting black SUV, and disappeared into the night. Lily collapsed into tears. Between sobs, she whispered the first sentence she had never dared say before. "They've found me again." Marcus locked every door and pulled the curtains closed. Officer Daniel searched the street, but the black SUV had already disappeared. Inside the house, Lily sat between Marcus and Emma, gripping the silver key so tightly that its edges pressed into her palm. Marcus lowered himself in front of her. "No more running." Lily looked at him through wet eyes. "You don't understand." "Then help me understand." For several seconds, she said nothing. Then she finally whispered the truth. Before living on the streets, Lily had stayed inside a private children's shelter run by a charity called the Havenridge Foundation. The building looked safe. The staff smiled. But children who arrived carrying unusual objects were taken into a locked basement office. Their necklaces, coins, keys, and family papers were photographed and cataloged. Lily's older brother, Aaron, had discovered that the charity was searching for children connected to properties purchased decades earlier by a secret community trust. The silver key had belonged to their mother. Aaron believed it opened a courthouse evidence locker containing original ownership records. Before he could reach the police, he disappeared. Lily escaped through a laundry window. Marcus felt his anger rise, but his voice remained calm. "And the people outside? They worked for Havenridge." Officer Daniel looked toward Marcus. "The foundation is funded by Ethan Brooks, the same billionaire developer who had recently begun buying property across Oak Ridge." Marcus now understood. They were not hunting Lily because she was homeless. They were hunting the proof she carried. The next morning, Daniel contacted state investigators. But before anyone could arrive, Helen Carter from Child Protective Services returned with an emergency removal order. Marcus read the paper twice, claimed Lily was in danger inside his home. Helen would not meet his eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Two officers stood behind her. Lily grabbed Marcus's hand. "You said I wouldn't have to run." Marcus turned toward Daniel. Daniel looked at the order and immediately noticed the judge's signature. The judge named on the document had retired 6 months earlier. The removal order was fake. Daniel stepped between Lily and Helen. "Who gave you this?" Helen's face collapsed. A man from Havenridge had threatened her family. She had been told to deliver Lily before noon, or her husband would lose his job and her son would be arrested on fabricated charges. That confession changed everything. Daniel recorded it. State police opened an investigation. And for the first time, the people following Lily disappeared. 3 months later, Marcus Reed legally adopted her. Emma stood beside them in the courthouse holding Snowball the rabbit. When the judge asked Lily whether she wished to become part of the Reed family, she looked at Marcus and said quietly, "I already am." For 5 years, their home became whole. Emma and Lily grew like real sisters. They painted furniture in the workshop, argued over music, shared secrets after bedtime. And every birthday, Marcus carved both girls something new. But happiness did not last forever. At 12 years old, Emma was diagnosed with a rare heart condition. Marcus sold equipment, worked through the night, and borrowed against the workshop to pay for treatment. Lily stayed beside Emma through every hospital visit. One evening, while Marcus slept in a chair near the window, Emma placed a folded note inside Lily's hand. "If I don't come home, don't say that." Emma smiled weakly. "Promise me you'll take care of Dad." Lily began crying. "I promise." Emma died 3 weeks later. After that, the house became quiet again. Marcus stopped carving toys. Lily stopped smiling. But she never forgot her promise. At 18, Lily found Aaron's hidden name inside one of the old state investigation files. He had not died. He had been placed under another identity after agreeing to testify against Havenridge. Lily left Oak Ridge to find him. She wrote Marcus a letter, but Ethan Brooks's people intercepted it. Marcus woke one morning and found her room empty. No goodbye, no explanation, only the silver key missing from its hook. He believed she had chosen to leave him. For 15 years, he heard nothing. Marcus grew older. The workshop became the last thing he still had. Then Ethan Brooks returned to Oak Ridge with a new development project. Luxury apartments, private medical complex, a commercial district worth billions. Marcus's property sat in the center of it. When Marcus refused to sell, the bank suddenly claimed he had defaulted on loans tied to Emma's treatment. Fees appeared, records vanished, and within weeks, Marcus faced foreclosure. On the final morning, he sat alone inside the courthouse. The judge prepared to approve the seizure of his workshop, home, and land. Ethan Brooks watched from the front row. He was older now, but his smile had not changed. Marcus signed the final page. Then the courtroom doors opened. A young black woman in a dark navy suit entered. She carried an evidence case in one hand and an old silver key in the other. "Stop the hearing." The judge looked up sharply. "Identify yourself." She placed a federal credential on the desk. "Special Investigator Lily Reed." Marcus stopped breathing. The woman turned toward him. Her eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry I took so long, Dad." Marcus slowly stood. For a moment, neither moved. Then Lily crossed the courtroom and wrapped her arms around him. 15 years disappeared inside that embrace. Ethan Brooks rose angrily. "This is a private property matter." Lily turned toward him. "No, it's a federal fraud investigation." She inserted the silver key into an old metal evidence box brought from the county archive. Inside were the original trust deeds Aaron had spent years protecting. The documents proved that Marcus's land, along with 42 surrounding properties, belonged to a protected community trust created by black business owners nearly 70 years earlier. The properties could never legally be transferred to a private developer. Ethan's company had forged ownership records. The bank had manufactured defaults. Havenridge had spent decades locating homeless descendants and stealing the objects that connected them to the trust. Then the final courtroom doors opened again. Aaron walked inside. Alive. Behind him came federal agents. Bank executives were arrested. Havenridge's director was taken into custody. Ethan Brooks watched his empire collapse in silence. Marcus looked at Lily. "You came back to save my workshop?" She shook her head. "I came back to keep my promise." She opened Emma's old wooden memory box. Inside rested the note Emma had given her in the hospital. "Please take care of Dad." Marcus pressed the paper against his chest. Months later, the workshop reopened, but Marcus no longer used it only to sell furniture. He and Lily transformed it into a free training center for homeless children and struggling single parents. They named it Emma Reed House. On opening day, a little girl pointed toward two carved names above the entrance. Who built this place? Marcus looked at Lily standing beside him, then toward Emma's name. My daughters. And for the first time in 15 years, the light inside Reed family woodworks stayed on long after dark.